are still under a weather alert, even though our system is still about 30 hours out. So yeah, don't be alarmed here over the next 24 hours because the system is going to be very slow to arrive. And that's another point I want to bring up. I was talking to meteorologist Marty Vinichinque this morning. We had a meeting and I learned something new from Marty every day, but he was talking about the slow-moving nature of the system and how some of the diurnal cycles, which means more of the rise and fall in the daytime and daytime heating, and then kind of the cycles that it's been through, it's kind of eroding some of that cooler air at the core of this system. And because we really don't have a very cold bout of air coming in with this system, it's going to make the temperature profile fairly unimpressive. And I can definitely see how that's going to play out at this point, giving us more of that very wet content of snow and a extremely sharp delineation line between very heavy snow to not much at all. So let's talk about the latest track. It's really not much different than what we saw yesterday. Coming up through the Four Corners, center of circulation here at about 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. But we will have a lot of jet stream energy right over the I-25 corridor. So I do think our snow will really start to ramp up through Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. Area of low pressure starts to slide across southern Colorado. We really need that low a little bit farther south, but then kind of expands as it moves east of the Rockies and looking like it's going to favor more of that ramp that it needs, which is the Palmer Divide, as those winds come up and over the Palmer Divide and then start to get all that lifting from that Palmer Divide area and the mountains. It starts to really just dump on parts of Denver, areas into central Douglas County, northern El Paso County, and the mountains. So that latest track would still favor the bullseye for those locations. If that low pressure center drops a little farther south, it would be an entirely different scenario, and the variation is only about 10 miles. So an extremely small variation could change things quite a bit, and that's still on the table. Let's kind of talk about the futurecast here and what some of our in-house forecast models are showing you, because I do think it's picking up on this system fairly well. Notice as we move through Friday night, not much is really happening. That's not to negate the fact that we won't have a few flurries through the day that this model is not picking up on, but most of the really bulk moisture and energy doesn't really arrive until late Friday night into Saturday morning, with a few thunderstorms coming in on the north side of that low pressure center. And notice here as we move through the sunrise time frame, we get a little bit of a wintry mix changing over to all snow between about 7 and 9 a.m. But it's a very weak little band of snow here through parts of the Palmer Divide, Castle Rock, Monument areas into the Air Force Academy. And notice as we move through the afternoon hours, moisture is a little bit limited. That could be two reasons. If we have this explosive thunderstorm activity here across the Central Plains, look at those thunderstorms. That could cut off our moisture significantly. All those thunderstorms could really just gobble up a lot of our moisture. So I think that's the reason we're seeing that brief lag in snow as we move through the 10 a.m. to noon time frame. Then it starts to pick back up. We get more daytime heating, we get the wraparound moisture, and that would really just continue to favor northern El Paso County, the Palmer Divide, and Teller County through the afternoon and evening hours. But look at this. You'll notice that we really don't get a changeover to snow for places like Fountain and Fort Carson and southern El Paso County until the afternoon hours on Saturday. So we're still a ways out here and really not a vertically stacked profile of cooler temperatures until closer to sundown, which makes sense. This is actually picking up on the system fairly well, and then more of a changeover to a trace at best across Fowler, Ordway, in parts of Rocky Ford, La Junta, and parts of Pueblo County. I do think the snow is going to get pretty heavy, especially for higher terrain areas Saturday night, and then we'll start to see a complete wraparound with those winds out of the north through Sunday. Our winds are going to be gusting between 30 to 40 miles per hour, so even with a little bit of snow flying and it lightening up and becoming a little bit more fluffy where it flies through the air a lot easier, it's going to reduce visibility pretty quickly. So that would be the time period you definitely don't want to be on the road. It's going to be Saturday night through Sunday afternoon. Here's our Barron in-house forecast model. Consistently is very accurate, but the one thing I would say that kind of sticks out, I don't think it's picking up on some feet of snow very well across northern Colorado. I do think that sharp delineation line between about 4 to 6 likely in Colorado Springs is very probable. This is the GFS model that really starts to pick up on that zone of some 2 to 4 feet of snow for areas west of Denver, but notice that doesn't really get going until Saturday afternoon through Sunday. So you'll actually notice where we see likelihood of 12 plus inches of snow here in Monument, possibly close to 15 inches. So we could get a little closer to that 20-inch mark in some locations, but it is really going to depend on the track, and it's something we're still watching very, very carefully. We'll continue to keep you posted. So that's what we know right now. The timing has changed just a bit, but what has not changed is those higher impacts for the Palmer Divide, the Denver area, and northern Colorado. Still need to avoid I-70, I-25 through the Gap completely this weekend. If you had plans to be traveling that far north, just cancel those plans and maybe just be flexible with your other plans if you live a bit farther south into parts of Pueblo and the Eastern Plains. If you live in Colorado Springs, best to stay home if you can. Canyon City temperatures you'll notice in the 30s and 40s for the next few days, and we look for mostly dry conditions tomorrow with a lot of the heavy snow materializing on Saturday. Back to you guys.
All right, we'll keep watching it, Mary. Thanks.